started to make these videos or whatever, I um I used to post them as things because it was basically just me unloading my thoughts. At the time, uh, when I couldn't write, I used to write a lot, um, and the stuff that I had to write wasn't exactly in. It didn't correlate with my thoughts. Those were the things that I had to write out of duty and stuff. So I decided to just start presenting my things, right? And what I tried to do was to challenge myself as well as to test what's in my mind, because every time I do the recordings, I would actually play back. So it's unrehearsed. I don't write things down. Sometimes I might get an idea or a theme for what I want to discuss from somewhere, but then there was, uh, I guess I started to notice that there were some folks that started to get their hands on this stuff, and if you put something online, obviously someone will get it. But I guess what ticked me off was the fact that um, it was perceived that somehow, because of me looking into the camera and stuff, that I was reading a script, or that someone was giving me the information and I was reading it, and what. These are my things. It's all in my head, um, and that's what makes it work for me. All right, it's me challenging myself every time in my own peculiar way, I guess. Uh, that's why sometimes it doesn't really seem consistent, and sometimes it can be a blunder because it's just things, thoughts, thoughts of some guy in Namibia, uh, you know, making some video with his thoughts. And my thoughts now are on the whole wealth, since my things have begun to correlate with what I'm actually supposed to be doing. It's all about, okay, I will talk about wealth now. Wealth distribution. The whole world agrees that the trickle down mechanism doesn't work. The people that have accumulated a lot of wealth don't think that being taxed higher is fair to them. Um, so I guess to me it goes down to when people think of wealth, when people think of wealth and stuff, they always think in terms of money and currency. But if you want to tackle a giant like wealth distribution, you really have to go back, and I mean way back. Wealth used to be someone that has a lot of livestock, right? Wealth used to be someone that has more things to barter with the other person. So it's a fact that entrepreneurs and business people created wealth. That's why capitalism is so successful. But the problem with capitalism now is that the core of it, which is bartering, has completely dissipated. Right now, wealth is being created from nothing, right? And I'll use an example like Google, for example. They get wealth from information, right? By bartering information and by being a platform where people can advertise, right? And that's how they get their wealth. Um, but to its core, to its core, it it's wealth from nothing, right? There is value to it, yes, because of a modernized world, of course, but it creates a problem uh, when it becomes too big, not because of selfishness or greed, but because of the value that the market itself puts on it, right? So a lot of people have this idea that you have a lot of rich people who are just greedy, stingy, holding on to their billions, and they are not nice people and all that stuff. And this isn't true. There are some who do make money off some people's suffering, but not everybody does. And most modern, wealthy, self-made millionaires, billionaires don't really have that characteristic. The characteristic that they have is one, they have no belief in limits. They don't believe in impossible. They keep pushing. They keep pushing barriers. Right. So that's how they end up finally from, it's almost like gambling, I guess. From putting in all that effort, finally you get something and it works. Now, this is not a greedy, evil person who had a scheme to just, it's someone that wanted to make something work, something of value. In the end, it becomes very visible, but that's just because it is. So, the whole gap of the haves and the have nots, and the ideas that people that have are evil, and that's the principle that people have that makes them hate, sort of have a bitterness toward those that are wealthy. I understand the bitterness to those that steal, because there are a lot of people that acquire wealth by looting and by unfair practices. This is mostly in Africa, that's true, but there are those that work for what they have. Now, you have our free market system and you have the communist system. And when it comes to economics, right now, they seem to work differently. It seems to me, looking at China, that they have a more, um, they have a better trickle down uh, mechanism than the founders of capitalism, which is America, which has a crisis right now, where they have people that are very wealthy and people that end up suffering when the wealthy start to gamble too much and they cripple the economy, like what happened uh, where they had to go borrow money from China. So China is very smart. China is very smart in that they are empowering, they are empowering all of their small, medium businesses. They are empowering them. The government is empowering them, and they are sending them out into the world, right? And this is leading to growth, and this growth comes back to China. And when it comes back to China, what they do with it is that they put it into services. That's where China is winning. China is putting it into services like medicine, like the health sector, right? Because they know they have a very big problem when it comes to pollution and all of that. So health is very important to them. So they are making sure that they make strides in health as well as innovate in information. What China is doing is that they are pushing information into their population so that their population is not easily, what can I say, is not easily swept up by subliminal marketing. Now, subliminal marketing, I can give you, for example, is the kind of marketing that we see when something is advertised and there is this message about how you need it in your life, how this can change your area. It just makes you want that something, even though there aren't any real benefits to it, and it is a luxury. So the information that they are pushing for to their population is how to discern between a luxury, want, and a need. This information is very important to the bigger, greater population. They are making their population. Okay, I got interrupted, so let me go back. Okay. Yeah, so they make sure that the population knows, number one, the obstacles that the country is facing. They don't hide it. This is what most other governments do, is they try to hide um, the problem areas that they have. But China, they don't hide the problem areas. They actually allow the population to come up with ideas that can solve this problem. And that's why we see China rising so fast, because a lot of people are coming up with so many innovative ideas and solutions to different problems that they have. And secondly, the way that they seclude themselves, we get the propaganda that we're given is that China is a communist country and they seclude themselves from the world. Um, you know, it's bad and people should have chosen. No, no. What they when they seclude themselves, what they do is they want to control what goes in and what goes out. They want to control their own market as well as protect their own market and their citizens. They protect their citizens. That's why they are so successful. Um, there is new social media is a big thing in the world and whatever. And as soon as it tries to penetrate the Chinese market, the gate is closed and someone comes up with their own version of it. I mean, these people have their own version of KFC. They have their own version of a lot of things. They try to innovate um, and compete with the world as opposed to letting the world dictate to them. And let's not forget that China is a united republic. That means it's made out of states. It's like if Africa was the United States of Africa, we would have states as opposed to countries. That's what China is. So they have the market and they use they use it to their own benefit and they empower their people. And when it comes to urbanization, they know that urbanization presents certain difficulties and they inform these difficulties to the population. And when they do, the population then in turn comes up with creative ideas along with their government how they can make the transition from rural to urban China without the overwhelming influx that they saw in the past because they've dealt with this before. So obviously they've learned a lesson of a lot of villages ending up in metropolises or cities and so forth. So they know that this is a problem they have to tackle, and they make sure that there is a proper channel of doing this. And secondly, that when someone makes transition from going from rural to urban, they are fully aware of what a city is, how a metropolis operates, and so that they just don't do it and end up stuck in a place where they become basically uh, slave labor. Of course, we have a lot of what you can call slave labor in China and so forth, but these are all working at the bare minimum point of what the government allows, and most of them are doing it undercover. Uh, the picture that we get presented is that the government just allows this. It's not true, right? It's not true. A lot of these um, cases are actually being fought off by the government of people that comes from the rural areas being taken advantage of by people that live in the urban areas, right? So when you have an information based economy, you have a very strong economy, because it becomes an economy that understands the basics of economics, and then the rich to middle class to poor is understood, and the method of working your way up, identifying your talents and utilizing them is understood, and also the ones that cheat are being uh, pushed out slowly, and we see this. They are being pushed out, as you see, with a lot of arrests that are happening. So, what we need and what we learn from this, I believe, is what I've always been saying with information redistribution. I've used harsh words, obviously I have, but information is crucial. Information, knowledge is power. Now, the way we view it is we use the education model, the standard education model. The problem with the standard education model is it only teaches that certain thing, that certain course. It's not general. It does not really open up the mind to different horizons. So there has to be a transformation in our education system whereby a lot of these things are incorporated. How the economy works, what's illegal, what are bribes, what is corruption, as well as one more thing. When it comes to law enforcement and government and citizens no longer need to uh, be obedient to law enforcement or to high ranking government officials. Obedience is something that you do to a king. We are a democracy. It's not about obedience. Citizens need to cooperate within their rights. And when I say within their rights, I'm saying that they are also protected from being abused by the system, and they should be knowledgeable of this fact that there are certain things that they can refuse. They can refuse to cooperate if the condition does not call for cooperation. Conduct is within the institutions, like in the police. A lower ranking police officer would be expected to conduct himself or herself in a certain way to a higher ranking officer. A lower ranking army official would have to conduct themselves in a certain fashion to a higher ranking officer. And within a company or corporation, you also have conduct. But when it comes to citizens, it's not about uh, conduct, it's about cooperation. This is the freedom that democracy has brought us. It is what it means um, to be a democratic country, is that the authority figures, the authority figures need to understand that they should expect cooperation and not conduct. authority. We see a lot of people being overwhelmed by those in power that they end up being obedient and conduct themselves in certain fashions as opposed to being cooperative. When you are cooperative, you can be welcoming and so forth, but you are not, you don't go down and, start praising the individual. Now, this individual power, this individual power is what would have given us the power to rise above a lot of our conditions, because it means that everybody has the right to access to certain information that broadens their scope and their mind of how the world works, how their government works, how certain institutions work. But we have a dilemma whereby a lot of high ranking officials, and I'm including even in universities and police, armies, and whatever, they expect conduct from citizens, which is wrong, right? And it means that we have a rigid community, a timid community, and that means unity is hard. It makes unity a bit difficult because expression becomes dangerous. And when expression is dangerous, there is little room for progression, because when you express yourself, you open up this tunnel whereby you can become targeted by a system that does not really understand um, you know the objectives and the way it works, basically, not because of the system being ineffective, but because of those in charge not being fully informed. All right. So a knowledgeable population, an information savvy population, a population that values information and knowledge, becomes a population that strives. You understand? You get people that start thinking ahead. They start thinking about the future. They start thinking about collaboration. They start thinking about building, right? You get a knowledge, knowledgeable economy that is also aware of of all of the hurdles that they face in the open wild, and that's in the world, as well as how to combat them and where to look for I where to look for assistance, because it's power in numbers sometimes. But there are lots of things that we have to get rid of, and one of those things is rigid this rigid uh, way that we conduct ourselves. I'm not saying everybody should get loose and we should start letting go of our values and everything. No. All I'm saying is that we are free. free of the past. But in order for us to be free of the past, we also have to acknowledge it. A lot of people don't want to acknowledge the past, and this is a problem. We have to acknowledge it, make peace with it, and then bury it. Because the whole principle of punish punish people for the past that was circumstantial and environmental at that time, a past that is based on the conditions of that time, that would lead us to stagnate. We want progress. As hard as it is, we want progress. We need to look at this thing. Look at what George W. Bush did. What he did is tantamount to war crimes too. But his country protects him. They are angry about what he did. They disagree with what he did. But he hasn't been prosecuted or put in court or whatever because of his status. They know it would harm their country. It would do greater harm than good. And we need to start looking at this too. Will it will there be more damage caused by this vendetta to punish, right? So what I'm saying is that we have people that have been implicated or are implicated in bribes who were unaware. They were tricked, just like the people that tricked us and brought colonialism to our continent. This same mechanism was used. So what we have to do is wash clean. Let's say those times are over. But from now on, you know what a bribe is, and you will definitely get punished for it, and it will be made public. From now on, it's a no nonsense approach because you know what's right and you know what's wrong. So, in order for us, for the greater good, we can forgive the past. We can even be open about the past and say we want to start building from here. And by doing that, we disarm, we disarm the entities that use our past or the past of some of people of high caliber in our countries and such, uh, to blackmail them to do things that harm us as a population. When we say we forgive and we want to crucify, when we decide to disarm the external entities and decide we are starting anew, then we really do start to build, because now we know what is wrong, we know what is right, we know when we are being used, and we know when we are not being used, right? And we know that we can choose our allies, and that's the one thing that Africa has as an advantage. We can choose our allies. Let the big powers fight each other. That's their war. We are not going to engage in fighting with them because we should be preoccupied with bringing peace to our continent, to our countries. We should be busy creating trade routes. We should be busy empowering each other as countries. And we should be busy convincing some hard-headed old, I don't want to say dictators because that's their country, but we should try to get them to be more citizen conscious, that they will be punished by Africa if they harm Africans, right? So as we start to empower each other, then we empower the citizens, then we start to empower our economies, we start to rise, literally. We literally start to rise. We can't do anything about the past. The past is the past. People should forget um, retribution based on unforeseen circumstances, right? It harms us more than it would actually benefit us. And we don't want to stagnate just because we have to fix this one thing that happened a long time ago. That benefits no one. So, democratic countries, communist countries, and so forth, as long as you don't have feudal systems taking over and fascism, we are moving in the right direction because all of those different systems came at their own price, and we cannot forever keep paying for their crimes because most of the things that are wrong in Africa are because of other continents, because we have been their experimental laboratory for a long time. They have used our leaders against us. They have used people against other people. They have just look at everything. The infighting, the tribalism, everything is is something that happened because of external influences, and that's why we cannot punish each other because everybody was used as puppets on strings for their benefits. As they start to grow stronger, we also have to start growing stronger. The world is reforming, and we cannot be left behind. So we cannot be silenced. Don't fear, don't be silenced. Don't fall for the bluffs. in numbers. It is happening as we speak. The world is transforming, not just Africa, the world. The connections are there, global connections, trust me. Spies are being seen for what they are, and they are, spies are put in communities to influence communities uh, to achieve the goals of those who send them. Now that they are being seen for what they are, there is this conspiracy being brought up about how, um, as if there are these innocent people who are now targets of something, while their role, their initial role was not for the benefit of wherever it is that they got planted. So for each spy that they have out in the world, wherever, we have three, because the citizens are taking the control. It's a new world, it's new Africa, and it cannot be based on fear. Forget that. Salute.